from PRX.
Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the podcaster who's here to keep you company. That's really my job, is to keep you company, take your mind off of stuff, to be here. I'm here for you. I'm here when you call via the, whatever button, it's not, or a screen. Call me anytime. But via podcast app, which actually the podcast app technically does make some sort of call through some sort of codes or something, like to the server, and it says calls the server. So call my server anytime through your podcast app. Call me on your pod phone, as the Drake once said, and I'll take your mind off of stuff, because it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Hey, everybody, it's Scoots. I'm talking about tonight's sponsor, Helix Sleep. And if you don't have a Helix mattress in your life, you got to think about taking the quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep. I've been sleeping in my Helix probably longer than you've been listening to this podcast. And I love my bed so much. I have a move coming up, and I'm trying to decide, because I have to move in a couple different stages just due to things outside of my control. And I know I'm going to be in my apartment, but most of my stuff's going to be gone. And I'm like, should I keep my Helix there and then buy another Helix for my next destination? Or should I pay to have that Helix moved, but I don't want to be without it, because I don't think I'll be able to sleep without it, because I love sleeping in my Helix. And I know it'll be super easy if I take the Helix quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep. Maybe my needs and feel preferences have changed, so I could see what my options are. I could choose between a Luxe mattress, a Helix Elite, or just, whatever comes up in my search. I know I'll have choices. So the question is, do you have that kind of relationship with your mattress that you don't want to be without it? Because if you don't, what are you waiting for, right? You could have a Helix shipped straight to your door free of charge and get testing it out. But the first thing you need to do is just take that quiz, because Helix has you and your needs in mind, your feel preferences. How do you like to sleep? How does your partner like to sleep? So it is time for you to get a new bed. Because trust me, this summer, I do not want to be without my Helix mattress. And Helix has got an amazing deal lined up for you. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep for 27% off site-wide during their 4th of July sale happening now. This offer is exclusive for listeners to Sleep With Me. That's helixsleep.com/sleep for this exclusive 4th of July sale offer. That's 27% off site-wide. helixsleep.com/sleep. Thanks, everybody. It was the Scoots, and if you listen to this podcast every night, if it's been part of your life for weeks, months, even years, then I'm talking to you right now, and I'm trying to be direct with you. You're a super listener, and that means that the show's a part of your life, right? You've probably been, even if you're a new super listener, you probably know a lot about me. You've probably gotten to know me pretty well. And, I'm imperfect, right? You can hear it in these things. Sometimes I got a little bit extra emotion or concern. But if you're listening and hear me right now and you haven't decided not to support the show, if you've decided you're not going to support Sleep With Me, I'm not trying to change your mind. If you have not decided, or you've been putting off deciding, or you said, hey, it's up to somebody else to support the show, you're the only person listening and hearing me right now, and that's not an exaggeration. So you could imagine there's somebody else that might step up, but I'm talking to you, because we do need your help so this show can be here for you in the future and everybody else in the future. And you can support the show by signing up for Sleep With Me Plus if you've been hearing this, or being an active member of our referral program. But if you're not going to support the Sleep With Me, I understand that. But do me one favor, support something else that makes your life better. Something you listen to more than this, you read more than this, you watch more than this. If you got something that makes your life better, whether it's at the day or the night, show it some love. Support the show. or support the creator, support the writer, or support the musician. But if Sleep With Me is your thing, if this podcast is the one thing you come back to night after night, especially multiple times a night, if you're an all-night listener, you're who I'm trying to get a hold of right now, please consider supporting the show. Right now, we've got a deal for all-night listeners. You could sign up at sleepwithmepodcast.com/all-night. You'll get 20% off the Boyfriend tier, only if you use that link, sleepwithmepodcast.com/all-night, and you'll change the trajectory of the show and help us to be there for you and everybody else in the future. For all your all-night listening, your multiple night listening, your multiple episode listening. Thanks. Mystery Bard, a lot of people help out on the show. Who are they?
Chris Posty Poster Son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes too. Carl W. the Legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Hannah like banana. Leah does the transcripts.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. Oh, and hey, if you're listening to this, you know, the referral program, if you're not in a position to financially support the show, is a huge way to support the show and get free access to Sleep With Me Plus. That's at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer. But there's also a tiny way anybody can help out the show. It's free. It helps out the show a little bit. And that's following the podcast wherever you listen to it or commenting if you listen on Spotify or YouTube. It really helps other people discover the show, helps you stay up to date on the latest episodes. And only 50% of people follow or subscribe. It's free to follow or subscribe in podcast apps. So if you do that, it just gives it helps people discover the show and it helps you stay up to date on the show. So follow or subscribe in your podcast app. That'll help out the show a little bit. Not necessarily keep us going forever, but I'd appreciate it. And while you're at it, go ahead and follow Bedtime Stories from Sleep With Me. That's in every podcast app, too. That has a story-only episodes that'll add it to your sleepy repertoire. Thanks, and what do you say we get on with the show? Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, things on your mind that you're thinking about, whether, it could be thoughts from the past or the present or the future. So thoughts, any feelings coming up, emotions bubbling to the surface, or leftover, or, anticipatory feelings and emotions. It could be physical sensations. It could be a change in your schedule or your routine. It could be that your schedule is not routine. So many people in different, jobs, especially jobs that are community support, jobs where you're supporting our community. In your community, you don't even have regular schedules, and we get to be there for you because you're there for us. So I appreciate that. It could be something else, seasonal or situational, whatever it is. I'd like to take your mind off of it. What I propose to do is create a safe place, like I said, where you could set that aside. I'm going to create the safe place by sending my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders. which means I'll go off topic. Pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'll get mixed up. Filler words. This podcast is so full of filler words, it's overflowing. If I could think of a joke, I would have put it in there. How full is it? It's over. See, how full is it? It's overflowing. Did I ever tell you all, my dear listeners, the great tub overflow story? I know there was something called tub overflow. I'll try to remember to tell it to you because it's just an example of how human we all can be. And I think that was when I made I think the podcast existed then. Maybe not, though. Maybe it didn't exist then. I'm not sure. But whatever. Here's the thing. I'm going to, send my voice. So if you're new, a few things you might want to know because this podcast is very different. So if you're having a reaction or you get here, you say, what is this? What's this? When's the story going to start? I'd say about 15 minutes from now. So the reason this podcast is different is it's really here it's a sleep podcast, but I'm also very different. Maybe you're very different. So we have that and, we share that. It's one of the things that can keep us awake at night. It's just that could be a feeling and a thought and a it could be a triple decker. Oh, boy. So what was my point? And when I tell you this tub story, you'll say, okay, makes sense. So this podcast is different. That's one thing. But, of course, if you're skeptical or doubtful, if you're new, that would make total sense as well because I'm sure you've been promised things to put you to sleep in the past. Maybe you're like a lot of the other listeners, the regular listeners listening now, or the new listeners that say, yeah, I've tried all this different stuff and none of it works, or it works for me like for a day or a week. And I say, yeah, I've been there. That's why I started making this show, as a matter of fact. So that's one thing. The podcast is different. It's also not a podcast you really listen to. My job is I'm here to keep you company and to take your mind off of stuff in a way that just barely engages you. So you say, okay, I'm aware someone is talking and they may tell a story about a tub, like a tub in the intro, the old bed tub. It ain't no hole in the bed tub. Emmett Otter never sang that one. But if there was a bed tub, you'd probably want multiple holes in it. Putting a bed in a tub probably would put a crick in your neck, so don't do it. I was just thinking of the term crick in the neck. It's spelled differently than creek, right? Okay, you don't really listen to me. You just kind of look at me like you would observe water passing by in a stream. You say, okay, there's some water going there. But you're not really paying too much attention. So loosely listen or listen in an out of focus way, you're looking at water clouds. I don't really actually put you to sleep either, even though this is a sleep podcast. And I kind of started that whole, the sleep audio kind of thing back in 2013. This podcast doesn't put you to sleep. It's here to keep you company while you fall asleep. So I'm here to take your mind off of stuff while you drift off. That's why the shows are over an hour. So you say, oh, I got plenty of time to fall asleep. And here's the other thing. You don't even have to fall asleep. If you can't sleep, I'm going to be here. So listening to me is optional, but there's no pressure to fall asleep. My job is to keep you barely engaged and to keep you company, whether you need it or not. And if you can't sleep, I'm going to be here to the very end. Because there's a tiny percentage of listeners on a regular basis that can't sleep. And then there's people that, yes, situationally, I'm here to keep you company. I'm really here to apply for the role of bore friend, bore bud, bore sib, bore bestie, bore cuz. And yeah, I guess I have an admission to make about not being perfect. I mean, definitely on multiple levels, but this tub story will show you. So a couple other things that if you're new, they can throw new listeners off. One is the structure of the show. other than all the other stuff I said, and that I'm an acquired taste, and that it takes 2 or 3 times to get used to the show. The structure show's very different, but it's intentionally different. Show starts off with a greeting, friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, so you feel welcome. Then there's business and listener support and that kind of stuff. That's how we're able to be here free twice a week, is the business at the top of the show and the business after the intro before the episode. Then there's an intro. The intro goes from like minute 4 or minute 6 to minute 20 or so. And for new listeners, at first it can feel a little bit jarring, but for regular listeners, it kind of serves a purpose. And then for some new listeners, they get it right away and they start falling asleep or getting comfortable. And then a few people skip the intro. 3% of listeners skip the intro. But for most people, the intro introduces a new person to the show. You get to know me. Particularly tonight, I'm going to tell you a personal story. But it also gives you some space between your daytime and your falling asleep time, whether you listen to the podcast while you're getting ready for bed or as part of your wind down routine, or you're in bed already cozy and comfy. Regular listeners, it kind of helps you ease you into bedtime. So that's the goal of the intro. And because it goes for like 15 or 20 minutes, some people say, why? And I say, well, to give you some space to set the sun, as we say, or as I've just said just now. So that's the intro. Then there's business, and then there'll be a bedtime story. Tonight will be a story of 2 siblings going on a small adventure on a long and winding road. And I forgot their names, but Isocles and Listicles. So that'll be interesting. And then there's some thank yous at the end. So that's the structure show. Like a lot of listeners said, and I said earlier, this podcast is an acquired taste. So give it 2 or 3 tries before you give up on it. Unless you really don't like it already and you say, this is not for me, so, sir, I just don't appreciate you. And that's fine. Not everybody likes me or the podcast. I'm not even being I'm not being snarky. I totally get it. I have a website, sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. You could go there. There's other sleep podcasts and sleep audio stuff. Because, this podcast just isn't for everyone. So so I don't think I've ever told this story, or maybe I have. So let's see, the 2021, when I'm recording this must have been somewhere between 2010 and 2014. It could have been any of those years, maybe even 2015. Though probably not. I'm trying to think, my daughter was born in 22. Well, I don't want to say exactly, but so we were visiting. It was a summertime, and we were visiting. We were having like a small family gathering. Me and my family try to get together in the summer, and we go to a cabin on Lake Ontario. But we were. And this hasn't successfully happened, but this, whatever it was, I think I did make the podcast at this time. I'm not positive though. But let's say it was 2014, or 2015, just for, I think, I think it was after 20, whatever. So, whatever, it was one of those years. It was in the history of the humanity. But so I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and we have our childhood home, and my parents were kind of living there, but mostly they had relocated to Florida. And I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So in our childhood home in Syracuse it was there, and different people were living there at different times, but my mom had said, okay, this is whatever this summer was. She said, I want you to come. We got some work to do around the house. And, if you have anything at the house, I want you to take it and get rid of it. This isn't the important part of the story. This is just a setup of just like a sleep podcast. But so we were there, and then we also had to do a bunch of yard work, like not landscaping, but like weeding and that kind of stuff. Really stuff I was like, I think this is part of my vacation. And meanwhile, my brother-in-law was working, so he was not on vacation, and he was working remotely. And he was working remotely from my parents' basement downstairs on a computer. And then so I was like going indoors and inside and outside, like working on the lawn and the whatever, weeding and stuff and cutting bushes and going inside because my daughter was with me. And she was like around 6, 7 years old or something. And we hadn't been staying at this house. We'd been staying at a cabin on Lake Ontario that doesn't really have a bath or anything. And it's like got a septic tank, so you don't really you kind of bathe in the lake because there's not a lot of, it's not, it's like an outdoor living style. And so I said, why don't you take a bath? Because this is a great opportunity, with like at this house, you could take a bath. She says, okay, why don't you start my bath for me? I'm doing something. So I start running the bathtub. And the bathroom is like right next to the room where my brother-in-law is working. And I guess apparently this bathtub doesn't have any sort of overflow thing or anything. So I start running the bathtub and I said, hey, nameless brother-in-law, like I'm running the bathtub for my daughter. So I'm going to go back outside and work on the stuff, work on the lawn. Now, this wasn't really, I did not ask his permission because he was working. So I made a big old ASSUME, mostly out of me, but also it was my fault, even though in the story and even in my own feelings sometimes I would say, well, but really I'm the one to blame. I made an ASSUME. So I said, hey, just keep an eye on that tub or something. And he said, yeah. You're like, but he was working, like doing tech support. So he was focused. Then I went outside and started, doing more weeding. And probably mostly, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how much weeding or cleaning I was doing. And I was probably doing more GRIPEINGing. I mean, it was in the summer in Syracuse, New York, with like 80, 90% humidity. But so whatever. I did lose track of time because we were doing stuff. And then I totally forgot about it. And they heard all this yelling. And ended up, the tub just kept on going, and it filled up, it overflowed, filled the bathroom, then flowed out of the bathroom and surrounded my brother-in-law. He was actually unaware of it because I think he had headphones on, and filled the room he was in, which had like old carpet, so it even made the situation a little bit less not great. And then someone else came in and they said, what in the hay? So, and then, yeah, for me, I probably tried to be like, well, why weren't you paying more attention? But really it was my fault. And that tub overflowed. I have no idea what point that made, but just to share, if any of you out there feel like you're a person, I'm a person too. That's the kind of thing, think about all the, water was wasted. Ended up that the carpet, even it was old anyway, so we had to tear that out. I don't think my daughter took a bath because there's so much hullabaloo. But yeah, now it's all okay. These things happen. But I never would have thought. I guess if I think of my whole life, that's the only time I remember that happening to me, like where it was definitely. Where I say, wait a second. How come I don't lose track of filling up tubs all the time? I'm sure it happened before. Maybe not, though. Because usually, I mean, I think the tub has some sort of mechanism for that, but if the water's like on, like you're filling it up, you know what I'm saying? So here's my policy that I have is like only fill up the tub if you're in the room. I mean, that's probably what I should have stuck with. Or set a timer on your phone. I don't know, I actually wouldn't know what I was thinking. Maybe it was like in the middle of a conversation where I couldn't just sit there and let the tub fill. I think don't multitask. Hey, that's more for me, not for you. Scoots, don't multitask. So I won't tonight. I mean, my mind will, put multiple things in the path of my task. But tonight I'm here for one thing and one thing only, for you, because you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a place you could rest, and I want to help. So I'm glad you're here. I appreciate you coming by. I work really hard. I yearn and I strive. I really want to help you fall asleep, and here's a couple of ways I'm able to be here for you twice a week. Thanks. Everybody, this is Scoots right now, and if you're listening to me right now, you're hearing me. You know I've been doing these very targeted reads, right? Because this isn't for new listeners, this message. It isn't for occasional listeners. It isn't for people that listen from time to time. This is for people with sleep with me is not just a part of your bedtime routine, but it's like something that's a part of your bedtime routine 5+ nights a week. If you listen 5 nights a week, if you listen to 1 or more episodes a night, and if you listen all night long, please hear me out. If you're willing to listen. If you're not willing to listen or you're not interested, don't worry about it. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind here. I'm only trying to get through the people that haven't heard me yet or haven't listened yet. If you've already decided supporting the show's not for you and you're an all-night listener, don't worry about it. But if you are an all-night listener and you want to continue to be an all-night listener and you're listening to me right now, you're hearing me, you are a super listener, right? And you're who I'm trying to get it through to. Ads never have covered the cost of super listening, particularly all-night listening, because companies don't pay for ads that no one hears or listens to. And I think like super listening and all-night listening and 5-night-a-week listening is what makes Sleep With Me special and why I want it to be there. And I want this ad-supported, listener-supported, free version to be there. But it can only be there when the people that value it the most overcome whatever it is. Like if your mind can't be changed, that's not changeable. But if you're putting it off, if you're tuning me out, if you're saying one day, like if you've thought about it and there's just something small in your way, if you could think about signing up to support the show, it would be huge. And we really do need your support. If you're an all-night listener or a 5-night-a-week listener, 5 or more nights a week. And we have a great deal, 20% off the Boyfriend tier for all-night listeners. That's built with all-night listeners in mind. You could go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/all-night. The first 5 people to sign up, only with that link, though, sleepwithmepodcast.com/all-night. It's just 20% off the Boyfriends tier only. But the first 5 people will also get a notebook that I used to outline or write an episode sent to them. But you'll also be a part of something special, and I really appreciate it. Thanks. Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the second time you get to hear me say that. Welcome. Because this episode is constructed from an intro from the past and our Read With Me episodes here. It's a Frankie and Victor episode with our friend Frank and his, so I'm reading from the book Victor and Frankie, also known as a famous Mary Shelley novel. And this is a little bit different than episodes we've done with Sleep With Me, but we tested this out on Sleep With Me Plus. It was so popular, we wanted to bring it to everyone. So it's me reading through a book, also paraphrasing, making stuff sleepy, but it's not perfectly sleepy. I mean, just like everything else we make, It exists within this world, but it's pretty chill. So I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, more of Victor and Frankie. Thanks, everybody. All right, everybody, we return to Frankie, and Victor's story, Chapter 6. Clerval then put in my hands the following letter. It was from my own Elizabeth. My dearest cousin, I've heard you've not been great, very not great, and even the constant letters of Dear Henry are not sufficient to put my mind at ease. Supposedly you're not allowed to write, to hold a pen, yet one word from you, dear Victor, is necessary to calm our apprehensions. For a long time, I have thought that each post would bring this line, and my persuasions have restrained my uncle from undertaking a journey to Ingolstadt. I have prevented his encountering the inconveniences and perhaps, long journey. And yet how often I have regretted not being able to perform it myself. I figure to myself that the task of attending you when you're not so great has devolved on some hired nurse, a nurse for hire, as they say. And that nurse for hire, not only interested in the coin, who could never guess your wishes, nor minister to them with care and affection of someone like me, your poor cousin. Yet that is over now. Clerval writes that indeed you are getting better. Like WTF, man, I haven't heard from you, because I eagerly hope that you will confirm this intelligence soon in your own handwriting. Double WTF, get well and return to us already. You will find a happy, cheerful home and friends who love you dearly. Your father's health is vigorous, and he asks but to see you, but to be assured that you are well. Not a care will ever cloud his benevolent countenance. How pleased you would be to remark the improvement of our Ernest. He is now 16 and full of activity and spirits. He is desirous to be a true Swiss and to enter into the foreign service, but we cannot part with him, at least until his elder brother returns to us. My uncle is not pleased with the idea of a military career in a distant country, but your Ernest never had your powers of application. He looks upon study as an odious fetter. His time is spent in the open air, climbing the hills or rowing on the lake. I fear that he will become an idler unless we yield to the point and permit him to enter on the profession which he has selected. Little alteration, except the growth of our dear children, has taken place since you left us. The blue lake and snow-clad mountains, they never change, and I think our placid home and our contented hearts are regulated by the same immutable laws. My trifling occupations take up my time and amuse me, and I'm rewarded for any exertions by seeing none but happy, kind faces around me. Since you left us, but one change has taken place in our little household. Do you remember on what occasion Justine Moritz entered our family? Probably you do not. I will relate her history, therefore, in a few words. Madame Moritz, her mother, was a widow with 4 children, of whom Justine was the third. The girl had always been a favorite of her father, though for some strange reason her mother could not endure her. And after old Papa Moritz went to visit the big farm, her mother was not so nice. My aunt observed this, and when Justine was 12 years of age, prevailed on her mother to allow her to live at our house. The republican institutions of our country have produced simpler and happier manners than those which prevail in the great monarchies that surround it. Hence, there is less distinction between the several classes of its inhabitants, and the lower orders, being neither so poor nor so despised, their manners are more refined and moral. The servant in Geneva does not mean the same thing as a servant in France or England. I almost feel like I should change my voice to a whisper. But here, I can speak loudly because we're, just like you've taught me, dear cousin, a superior moral fiber within us. And thus, Justine was received in our family. She learned the duties of a servant, a condition which, in our fortunate country, does not include the idea of ignorance and a sacrifice of the dignity of a human being. Justine, you may remember, was a great favorite of yours, and I recollect that once you remarked if you were in ill humor, One glance from Justine could dissipate it for the same reason that Ariosto gives concerning the beauty of Angelica. She looked so frank-hearted and happy. My aunt conceived a great attachment for her, by which she was induced to give her an education superior to that which she had first intended. This benefit was fully repaid. Justine was the most grateful little creature in the world. I do not mean that she made any professions. I never heard one pass her lips, but you could see by her eyes that she almost adored her protectress. Although she was light-hearted and in many respects inconsiderate, yet she paid the greatest attention to every gesture of my aunt. She thought her the model of all excellence and endeavored to imitate her phraseology and manners, so that even now she often reminds me of her. When my dearest aunt passed to the big farm in the sky, everyone was too much occupied in their own feelings to notice poor Justine, who had been there for her, attending her when she didn't feel good, with most anxious affection. Poor Justine was not so great, but other trials were also reserved for her. One by one, her brothers, her sister, her mother, all went and visited over in the big farm as well. And with the exception of her neglected daughter, her mother stayed, so she was the only child, basically. And this woman, her conscience was troubled, and she thought the kids that she actually liked that went to the big farm, that was like to give her a sign that she was too partial, to chastise her, a judgment from heaven to chastise her partiality. And she went to talk to her belief system, and the confessor confirmed the idea which she had conceived. Would you believe that, dear brother? Dear cousin, I mean. Accordingly, a few months after your departure for Ingolstadt, Justine was called home by her repentant mother. Poor girl. She wept when she was quitted our house. I mean, doesn't that say a lot? She'd rather be a servant than be with her mother. I think I saw that on a shirt when I went on tour once upon a time. And she was much altered since my aunt went to the big farm. Grief had given her softness and a winning mildness to her manners, which in the past had been remarkable for the vivacity. Nor was the residence at her mother's house of nature to restore her good moods. The poor woman was very vacillating in her repentance. I mean, I could have seen that one coming. She sometimes begged Justine to forgive her unkindness, but then, turned her to the other cheek, her frowny face towards her, and said, maybe it's... She said things, that weren't so nice. And this perpetual fretting at length drew MM into decline, which at first increased her irritability. I mean, if you thought she was irritable when she was at her peak, you should see her in her decline. But here's the news. She ventured over to the big farm eventually, forever. As soon as the cold weather came... this last winter, Justine just returned to us. And here's the thing, I assure you, I love her tenderly. She is clever and gentle, extremely pretty. And as I mentioned before, her mien and her expression continually remind me of my dear aunt. I don't know, I may start calling her Auntie Justine. I don't know, what do you think, cuz? Is that strange? I may also say a few words to you. I'm writing for other reasons. If my motives aren't coming clear now, they may become clear or they may not. Because I have a dear cousin, darling William. I wish you could see him. He is very tall of his age, with sweet laughing blue eyes, dark eyelashes, and curling hair. When he smiles, 2 little dimples appear on each cheek, which are rosy with health. He has already had 1 or 2 little wives, but Louisa Biron is his favorite, a girl I mean, he's just a kid, this is just kid stuff. But now, dear Victor, I dare say you wish to be indulged in a little gossip concerning the good people of Geneva. The pretty Miss Mansfield has already received congratulatory visits on her approaching marriage with a young Englishman, John Melbourne, Esquire. Her sister, which I like, her Mannion, she married M. Doulevard, a rich banker, last autumn. And then your favorite schoolfellow, Louis Manoir, he's had a lot of bad luck since Clerval left. But he recovered his spirits and is reported to be at the point of marrying a lively little Frenchwoman, Madame Tavernier. She's a widow, much older than Manoir, but she is very much admired and a favorite with everybody. You know what? I wrote myself right into better spirits. I don't know if you could tell my mood, dear cousin, but my anxiety returns upon me as I conclude this message. I may not just have a PS, I may have a PSSS or a PPPPS. Here's the thing. Write, dearest Victor. One line, one word will be a blessing to us. 10,000 thanks to Henry for his kindness, his affection, and his many letters. We are sincerely grateful. Adieu, my cousin. Take care of yourself, and I entreat you write. It's from Cousin Elizabeth, Geneva, March 1817. Whenever. Dear Elizabeth, I exclaimed. Actually, I explained it and I exclaimed it as I was reading it. That's when I read her letter. I'm going to write instantly and relieve them from the anxiety they must feel. But I wrote, and the exertion greatly fatigued me. But my convalescence had commenced and proceeded regularly. In another fortnight, I was able to leave my chamber. One of my first duties on my recovery was to introduce Clerval to the several professors of the university. In doing this, I wonder when a kind of rough usage, ill-befitting, my mind, the tiredness of my mind that it sustained. Ever since that night, the end of my labors, and the beginning of my misfortunes, I had conceived an antipathy, even to the name natural philosophy. While I was otherwise quite restored to health, the sight of an instrument, anything biological in nature, it would renew all those things. I'd say, get that test tube out of my sight. Be gone, Beakers. Beakers, be gone. I even put a sign up. Hence it was that people would put on tree houses, no girls or boys allowed. I put before every room, that I would happen upon. No, Beakers be gone. Test tubes make me testy, I told my servants. Out with the apparatuses, and the apparati. I say be gone. Be gone, Beakers, be gone. Even wrote poetry about how much I loathed all those things. I'll send all the Bunsen burners into the beyond. And Henry saw this, even probably saw some of my poetry laying around and removed all of it from my view. He was I don't know if this is my benign he brought me benevolence of beakerdom, de-beakering. He also changed my apartment around. I said, I'm too tired. He said, this place is full of apparati. And, he knew I had, he changed everything around it because he could tell, I wasn't using, I was that I had acquired a dislike for the room that had previously been my lab. But, despite all the work I indirectly had him do, they were to no avail because I had to visit the professors, right, Waldman. And he praised with kindness and warmth the astonishing progress I had made. I said, please, no praise about my greatness in science. But he noted it when I said that. I said, no more he's read my shirt, Beakers Be Gone. One of my other shirts, I'm not with science. He found it confusing until I said, no, praise me not for my, it is clear my greatness is a fact, but praise me not. He realized I started to dislike the subject, but he didn't guess the real cause. He probably thought I transcended it, and transcended it so much that he attributed my feelings to modesty and changed the subject from my improvement to the science itself with a desire. I evidently saw, I was 10 steps ahead of him, as I would be. He's trying to draw me in a conversation about science. What could I do? He meant to please, but oh boy, was he giving me a cross forehead. I felt as he placed carefully, one by one, those 5 instruments which were to be afterwards used. I writhed under his words, yet dared not be honest with him either. Clerval, of course, quick eyes, quick feeling, discerned the sensations I was having. Clerval, I guess, is good at that stuff, like other people's feelings. And he declined the subject, alleging an excuse his total ignorance. He played the fool for me. And the conversation took a more general term. He said, I wouldn't know a bird's beak from a beaker. And at first we thought that was in jest, too. But then he said, no, really, because it's the same shape, And they talked in depth about that. It was almost like that sleep podcaster. He said, think about it. He goes, is that a beaker? It has a lower lip. That's what you pour out of. It's like the lower half of a bird's beak. And, while he did that, and I said, maybe he's serious. But I thanked my friend for my heart, but I did not speak. I saw plainly he was surprised, but he never attempted to draw my secret from me. And though I loved him with a mixture of affection and reverence that knew no bounds, yet I could never persuade myself to confide in him the event that was so present in my recollection. But the idea of detailing it to another, no way. Now, then we went to old M. Kremp's office. Holy cow, he was not equally docile. And in my condition at that time, it was of almost insupportable sensitiveness. His harsh, blunt encomiums. His harsh, blunt encomiums gave me even more, not like than the benevolent appropriation of M. Waldman. He was even using stuff, and he said, this guy, you really are a genius. Y.M. Clerval, he's going to outshine us all. Stare if you please, but it is nonetheless true. A youngster who but a few years ago believed in Cornelius Agrippa as firmly as in the gospel has now set himself at the head of the university. And if he is not so pulled down, we shall all be out of countenance. And I said, aye, easy with your greatness, but he continued, observing my face. M. Frankenstein is modest, an excellent quality in a young man. Young men should be diffident of themselves, M. Clerval. It's weird that he used that kind of talk, but I myself, when I was young, but that goes in a very short time. M. Krempt now commenced a eulogy on himself, which he happily turned into a conversation about something different, science, which had become so annoying to me. Now, Clerval had never sympathized in my tastes for natural science, and his literary pursuits differed wholly from those which occupied me. He came to the university with the design of making himself a complete master of languages, and thus he should open up a field for the plan of life he had marked out for himself. Resolved to pursue no inglorious career, he turned his eyes to head east, and affording scope for the spirit of his enterprise. the Persian, Arabic, and Sanskrit languages engaged his intention, and I was easily induced to enter on the same study. I said, wait a second, is this dude going to eclipse me? No way, bruh. You know, idleness has never been irksome to me, and now I wish to fly from reflection, and I loathed my former studies, so I felt great relief in being a fellow pupil with my friend, and found it not only the instruction, but consolation in the works we studied. I did not, like him, attempt a critical knowledge of their dialects. You know, it's kind of like auditing, right? I did not contemplate making any use of them than for me, just temporary amusement. Not, you know, only 2% of my brain or something. I mean, I wasn't needy like he was. I read merely to understand their meaning, and they well repaid my labor. So their melancholy is soothing, their joy elevating, and to a degree I never experienced studying the authors of any other country. When you're reading their writings, life appears to consist in a warm sun and a garden of roses, and in the smiles and frowns of somebody else, and even warms up my heart. How different they are from the manly and heroical poetry of Greece and Rome, you know, that I already knew so well. And, you know, this is how we passed the summer in these occupations, and my return to Geneva was fixed for the latter end of autumn. But stuff came up, you know, got me delayed, winter, snow, roads closed, and I said, well, you know, whatever I can't remember what my cousin said, and my dad, who am I related to? I'll wait till spring. I got outshine in these languages, but really, also, even though it was my actions, I felt this delay bitterly, for I longed to get to my hometown and my beloved friends. My return had only been delayed so long from an unwillingness to leave Clerval in a strange place where he wasn't, you know, because he was occupied with me so much, he couldn't make friends. So he was unacquainted with any of its inhabitants. The winter, however, was spent cheerfully. You know, me out reading him, out studying him. It was great. I mean, for me, it was. And although the spring was uncommonly late, when it came, its beauty compensated for its dilatoriness. The month of May had already commenced, and I expected the letter daily, which was to fix the date of my departure. And then suddenly Henry proposed a pedestrian tour in the environs of Ingolstadt, that I might bid a personal farewell to the country I had so long inhabited. Remember, this was his proposition, but he made it sound good, so I acceded with pleasure to it. Me, I'm fond of exercise, and Clerval's always been my favorite companion in the ramble of this nature. You know, it's just like we took the scenes in back home. We passed a fortnight in these perambulations. My health and spirits long been restored. They gained additional strength from the salubrious air I breathed and the natural incidents of our progress. In the conversations with my friend, study had before secluded me from the intercourse of my fellow creatures and rendered me unsocial, but Clerval called forth the better feelings of my heart. He again taught me to love the aspects of nature and the cheerful faces of children. Oh boy, more than Beakers, I love those children's faces. Excellent friend, how sincerely did you love me and endeavor to elevate my mind until it was on a level with your own. I mean mind like mind and not intellect. Obviously, we're on different levels already there. A selfish pursuit had cramped and narrowed me until your gentleness and affection warmed and opened my senses. I became the same happy creature who, a few years ago, loved and beloved by all. I didn't have a care in the world back then, when happy, inanimate nature, let me say that a third time, happy, inanimate nature had the power of bestowing on me most delightful sensations. A serene sky and verdant fields filled me with ecstasy. The present season was indeed divine. The flowers of spring bloomed in the hedges, while those of the summer were already in bud. I was undisturbed by the thoughts during which the preceding year had pressed upon me, notwithstanding my endeavors to throw them off with an invincible burden. Henry rejoiced in my good moods and sincerely sympathized in my feelings. He exerted himself to amuse me, even, like dance for me, perform for me, listen to me more, talk about subjects I like talking about, agree with my observations. And while he expressed the sensations that filled his soul, by the way, okay, maybe find another friend like you for you. I mean, sometimes the resources of his mind were, on occasion, truly astonishing. And that may or may not be a compliment, if you get my drift. His conversation was full of imagination, and very often, come up with some of your own ideas, bro, because it seemed like it was imitation of Persian and Arabic writers. Maybe a pale imitation, as he tried to invent tales of fancy and passion. And the other times he just repeated his favorite poems, or drew me out of arguments, which he supported with great ingenuity. And we returned to our college on a Sunday afternoon. The peasants were out there dancing, and every one of them appeared happy. But my own spirits were high, obviously. When I spent time with Henry, I tend to feel good about myself. And I bounded along with feelings of unbridled joy and hilarity. Chapter 7. On my return, I found the following letter from my father. My dear Victor, you have probably waited impatiently for a letter to fix the date of your return to us, since I got to hit the bill. And I was at first tempted and make all the planning. So I was at first tempted to write only a few lines mentioning the day on which I should expect you. But that wouldn't have been a very nice kindness, so I dare not do it. What would be your surprise, my son, when you expected a happy and glad welcome to behold, on the contrary, frowny faces? And how, Victor, can I relate our misfortune? Absent cannot have rendered you callous to our joys and griefs, though your absence of letters makes it feel that way. But I'm not the kind of type that would repay that with repaying, so I don't want to send you any letters, even though you've been long absent, to make your face frowny. So this is only to prepare you for woe. But I know preparing for, as a highly experienced in woe, and not the Joey Lawrence woe with an E. I know it's impossible. Even now I can sense your eyes skimming to seek the words which are to convey you these tidings I bring. So I won't mess around. William headed out to the big farm. Sweet William, whose smiles delighted and warmed my heart. Gentle, happy. Don't know how else to say it, because I already did. And I know you're tough to console, so I ain't going to attempt to console you. I'm just going to relate the circumstances of the transaction. May 7th, that was last Thursday. Me, my niece, your two brothers, we went for a walk. Plain Pali. It was a warm evening, serene even. And we prolonged our walk farther than usual. It got to be dusk. We said, we better get back. We didn't even think of it till after dusk. And then we discovered William and Ernest, they had headed out in front of us. We said, where are they at? We don't see them. And so we rested on a seat until they should return. But presently Ernest came and inquired, "Hey, you seen my brother?" And we said, "Thought he was with you." He said, "No, we were playing, and we were playing hide and seek, and we tried to find him. I tried to find him, and I waited, but I didn't see it. I couldn't find him. I said, come out wherever you are." And we said, "You said come out wherever you are." Well, first of all, what are you doing playing? I mean, shouldn't you be playing in a contained area? Like, didn't we teach you anything about hide and seek? But you did say come out wherever you are. And that was confirmed. But, you know, obviously his account said, "Well, that's strange, if he could hear you." So then we kept saying it together. And then it got, night came, and Elizabeth said, "Maybe he went home. Let's go back to the house." And we got home, no one there. So then we got some lights, torches. Because I was like, yeah, he's still high, but really, I'll just tell you. He said, "Well, I'll hide where you'll never find me. Big farm." But it's not so simple as that, because there's more to it. I think that you'll be reading into it, because we said, wait a second. So we looked and we looked and we looked. Elizabeth was obviously not happy. And obviously at some point we discovered, there was a note, guess what? I'm hiding in a big farm. Someone help me hide in the big farm, and I'm going to hang with the relatives there. And it was like, what? It's hard to put into a letter, but we were like, wait a second, what? Why? What did we do, My countenance, obviously Elizabeth saw it. She knew what was happening. And I said, "Don't worry about it." And she was like, she said, "This isn't what we would choose. We wanted to spend more time with him." She had to sleep a lot, and we're all down, for ourselves. Obviously, William, and also she said when William was wearing a miniature locket, I think, of his mother, and that we can't find. And so we said, wait a second, you can't take goods with you to the big farm. So now we're thinking whoever empowered that decision, I don't know, we're thinking they have it, So, dearest Victor, you got to get back here for Elizabeth, right? She said that, this is obviously, it's all about our needs, or her needs, but maybe the neediest of the needers, if you could come and have your needs usurp hers and mine, that you're so good at that, It's almost like one of those things negative, make a positive. We're all so unhappy now. If you could come, wouldn't that bring us your no offense, but wouldn't that make us feel positive in some sense? You could be your discomfort. It's so uncomfortable. It could bring us comfort. And so glad if your mother was around, I'd have been in big trouble, because she said, what were you thinking? You couldn't have advised him hey, we'd rather have you around. Now she's happy. So that version of her mother's happy, but the current Earth version of her mother wouldn't have been happy. She got what she wanted, but if she was here, I'd have been in a big mess. Now, I don't want you to brood about this either, right? Because it was his choice, and whoever advised him. So I want you to feel peace and gentleness and heal. I don't want to be overthinking, because I know you're an overthinker. Probably shouldn't be sending this letter, but I am. So get home, man. I'm sending kindness and affection for those who love you, and not, whatever. It happened. Whoever did it, to have the locket, but whatever. They helped him get what he wanted, and his mother's there. So that's it. Your affectionate father, who's not in a great mood either, Alphonse Frankenstein. Geneva, May 12th. Clerval, who had watched my countenance as I read this letter, was surprised to observe the despair that succeeded the joy I had first expressed on receiving news from my friends. I threw the letter on the table and covered my face with my hands. "My dear Frankenstein," exclaimed Henry, when he perceived me weep with bitterness, "are you always to be unhappy? My dear friend, what has happened?" I motioned for him to take up the letter while I walked up and down the room in extremest agitation. Tears also gushed from the eyes of Clerval as he read the account of my misfortune. My misfortune. "I can offer you no consolation, my friend," said he. "Your disaster is irreparable. What do you intend to do?" "To go instantly to Geneva. Come with me, Henry, to order the horses." At first, he tried to say he was just getting involved in. I said, whoa. This is about my misfortune. Are you my friend or your friend? But during our walk, Clerval endeavored to say a few words of consolation. He could only express his heartfelt sympathy. "Poor William," said he. "Dear, lovely child, but on the good side, hanging with his angel mother now. Who that has seen him bright and joyous in his young beauty? I wonder what his mother thinks, and who it was that escorted him such whence. How could he take from you, dear Frankenstein, even though he gave to his mother and to him, and probably endless joy for them, but I must witness your misery. Poor little when I say poor little fellow about him, I really mean you. One only consolation have we." I kind of already listed that. He's resting. So it is you whose tears and I on your behalf whose tears to the pang is over. He's at total peace, 100%. Assad covers a spot for him. The earthly realm has been left behind, as the poets once. That's what I thought we were studying, language. He can no longer be the subject for pity. We must reserve that for you, my friend, and the others. Clerval spoke to us as we hurried through the streets. The words impressed themselves on my mind, and I remembered them afterward. Not in the moment, they didn't strike me, only afterwards in solitude. But now, as soon as the horses arrived, I hurried into a cabriolet and bade farewell to my friend. He had done his duty, listened, or talked, but called my horses. My journey was very melancholy. At first I wished to hurry on, for I longed to console and sympathize with my loved and sorrowing friends. But as I got close and drew near my native town, I slackened my progress. Whoa, slow it down. I could hardly sustain the multitude of feelings that crowded into my mind. I passed through scenes familiar in my youth, but which I had not seen for nearly 6 years. How altered everything might be during that time. Or was it I who was altered? One sudden and desolating change had taken place, but 1,000 little circumstances might have by degrees worked other alterations, which, although they were done with more tranquillity, might not be the less decisive. Something came over me, and I dared no advance, dreading 1,000 nameless things. And those things made me tremble, although I was unable to define them. I remained 2 days at Lausanne in this painful state of mind. I contemplated the lake. The waters were placid. All around was calm. And the snowy mountains, the palaces of nature, were not changed. By degrees, the calm and heavenly scene restored me, and I continued my journey towards Geneva. The road ran by the side of the lake, which became narrower as I approached my native town. I discovered more distinctly the black sides of Jura and the bright summit of Mont Blanc. I wept like a child. Dear mountains, my own beautiful lake, how do you welcome your wanderer? Your summits are clear, the sky and lake are blue and placid. Is this to prognosticate peace or to mock at my unhappiness? I fear, my friend, that I shall render myself tedious by dwelling on these preliminary circumstances. But they were days of comparative happiness, and I think of them with pleasure. My country, my beloved country, who but a native can tell the delight I took in again beholding thy streams, thy mountains, and more than all thy lovely lake? Yet, as I drew nearer home, grief and fear once again overcame me. Night also closed around, and when I could hardly see the dark mountains, I still felt more gloomily. The very picture appeared a vast and dim scene. I foresaw us obscurely that I was destined to become the most wretched of all human beings. Alas, I prophesied truly, and failed only in one single circumstance, that in all the misery I imagined and dreaded, I did not conceive the 100th part of the anguish I was destined to endure. It was completely dark when I arrived on the environs of Geneva. The gates of the town were already shut, and I was obliged to pass the night at Cetron, a village at the distance of half a league from the city. The sky was serene, and as I was unable to rest, I resolved to visit the spot where William had made his departure off over the Rainbow Bridge. But, I couldn't pass through the town, so I was obliged to cross the lake in a boat to arrive at Plain Palais. During this short voyage, I saw lightning playing on the summit of Mont Blanc in the most beautiful of figures. The storm appeared to approach rapidly, and on landing, I ascended a low hill that I might observe its progress. It advanced, the heavens were clouded, and soon I felt the rain coming in large drops. But suddenly in large drops, and it quickly increased. I quitted my seat and walked on, although the darkness and the storm increased every minute, and that thunder burst above me with a terrific clash over my head. It was echoed from Salive, the Urus, and the Alps of Savoy. Vivid flashes of lightning dazzled my eyes, illuminating the lake, making it appear like a vast sheet of fire. And then, for an instant, everything seemed a pitchy darkness until the eye recovered itself from the preceding flash. The storm, as is often the case in Switzerland, appeared at once in various parts of the heavens. The most intense part of the storm hung exactly north of the town, over the part of the lake which lies between the promontory of Bellerive and the village of Copets. Another storm enlightened Jura with faint flashes, and another darkened and sometimes disclosed the Mole, a peaked mountain to the east of the lake. While I watched the tempest, so beautiful yet terrific, I wandered on with a hasty step. That noble WAR in the sky elevated my spirits. I clasped my hands and exclaimed aloud, "William, dear angel, this is thy dirge, from whence my heart," and as I perceived these words, I perceived in the gloom a figure which stole behind a clump of trees near me. I stood fixed, gazing intently. I could not be mistaken. A flash of lightning illuminated the object and discovered its shape plainly to me, its gigantic stature, its form, its shape and aspect, not that belongs to humanity. It instantly informed me that this was the wretch, the one I had somewhat birthed, to whom I had given life. What did he there? Could he be? And it gave me my back a little chilly poo. Is he the one that escorted my brother over the Rainbow Bridge? No sooner did that idea cross my imagination than I became convinced of its truth. My teeth chattered, and I was forced to lean against a tree for support. The figure passed me quickly. I lost it in the gloom. Nothing, no human could have done this to me, obviously. It had to be him. I could not doubt it. The mere presence of the idea was an irresistible proof of the fact. I thought of pursuing the creature, but it would have been in vain, for another flash discovered him to me, hanging among the rocks of a nearly perpendicular ascent of Mount Salive, a hill that bounds Plain Palais to the south. He soon reached the summit and disappeared. Quite the climber, that one. I remained motionless. The thunder ceased, but the rain still continued, and the scene was enveloped in an impenetrable darkness. I resolved in my mind the events which I had until now sought to forget. The whole train of my progress towards the creation, the appearance of the works of my own hand at my bedside, its departure. 2 years had now nearly elapsed since the night on which he first received life. Was this the first time he escorted someone? Alas, I had turned loose on the world, a wretch whose delight was in messing stuff up for me, making me M-I-S-R-E-Y. E-R-Y, if you, depending on how you take it. No one can conceive the anguish I suffered during the remainder of that night, which I spent cold and wet in open air. But I did not feel any convenience of the weather. My imagination was busy in scenes of despair. I considered the being who had cast among mankind endowed with the will and power to effect purposes not so great, such as the deed which he had now done, nearly in the light of my own account to chocolate, my own spirit let loose. He was messing with me. This was to do something to me. Day dawned, and I directed my steps towards the town. The gates were open, and I hastened to my father's house. My first thought was to discover what I knew and cause instant pursuit against this creature. But I paused when I reflected on the story I had to tell. People would be like, wait a second, what? A being which I had created and given life to, endued with life or imbued with it, had met me at midnight among the precipices of an inaccessible mountain. I remembered also the nervous fever which I had had at the time that I dated my I didn't date my creation, that dated the creation. Obviously, if I dated my creation, there would be a much different tale. Now is not the time for your snickering or giggling. But I was stressed at that time. So stressed, was now well, that would give an air of delirium to the tale, otherwise already so utterly improbable. So I well knew that if any other had communicated such a relation to me, I would say, holy mackerel, I would have looked upon it as the ravings of a raver. And I would have said, maybe you need to go home and sleep off that rave, or whatever you took at this rave. Besides, the strange nature of the animal world eluded all pursuit, even if I was so far credited as to persuade my relatives to commence it. And then what would be the use of the pursuit? Who could catch somebody scaling the overhanging signs of Mount Salive? These reflections determined me, and I resolved to remain silent. It was about 5 a.m. when I entered my father's house. I told the servants loudly, don't wake anybody up when I woke the servants, I said, don't disturb my family. And I went into the library to wait for their usual hour of rising. 6 years had elapsed, passed in a dream, but one indelible trace. And I stood in the same place where I had last embraced my father before my departure for Ingolstadt. Beloved and venerable parent, he still remained to me. I gazed on the picture of my mother, which stood over the mantelpiece. It was a historical subject painted at my father's desire, and represented Caroline Beaufort in like with a frowny face, saying goodbye to her father. Her garb was rustic, her cheek pale, but there was an air of dignity and beauty that hardly permitted the sentiment of pity. Below this picture was a miniature of William, and my tears flowed when I looked upon it. While I was thus engaged, Ernest entered. He had heard me arrive and hastened to welcome me. "Welcome, my dearest Victor," said he. "Ah, I wish you had come 3 months ago, and then you would have found us all joyous and delighted. You come now to share misery which nothing can alleviate. Yet you, presence will, I hope, relieve our father, who seems sinking under his misfortune, and your persuasions will induce poor Elizabeth to cease her vain and tormenting self-accusations. Poor William, he was our darling and our pride." Tears, unrestrained, fell from my brother's eyes. A sense of mortal agony crept over my frame. Before, I had only imagined the wretchedness of my desolated home. The reality came on me as a new and not less terrible disaster. I tried to calm Ernest. I tried and inquired more minutely concerning my father and her. I named my cousin. "She most of all," said Ernest, "requires consolation. She says it's, and who knows, we don't have any idea what even, you know what I'm saying? But then something did get figured out. Somebody, we did point the finger at whose idea it was. And I said, goodness, really? But how could they go, if they knew, how did they know? And how could they go after him? It was impossible. One might as well try to overtake the winds or confine a mountain stream with a straw. "I saw him, too. He was free last night," I said. "I know what you mean," replied my brother, in accents of wonder. "But to us, the discovery we had made completes our misery. No one would have thought it at first, but they decided that it was Justine who said, 'Hey, yeah, you think he wants help going to see his mom?' Fond of the family, but more fond of him and Mom. Wait, I said Justine? Her? Accused? But it is wrongfully. Everyone knows it. No one believes it, surely, Ernest." And he was like, "Yeah, not at first, but several circumstances came out, and it kind of forced our decision-making. Her own behavior has been confused. And to add to the evidence of facts, I fear that leaves no hope for doubt. But you got here right in time, because today's the case, and you'll hear all." He then related that on the morning, William had, the morning after William had gone to be with our mother in a big farm, Justine didn't feel so good and was confined to her bed for several days. And during this interval, one of the servants happening to examine the apparent apparel she had unworn that night, discovered in her pocket the picture of my mother, which had been judged, that the person, who brought, that was the payment for crossing the big farm, the Rainbow Bridge. And that servant instantly showed it to one of the others, who, without saying a word to any of the family, they went straight to a magistrate, and upon their disposition, Justine was busted. And, on being told, she confirmed the suspicion with a great measure of extreme confusion of manner. This was a strange tale, but it did not shake my faith, and I replied earnestly, "You're all mistaken. I know. Justine is innocent." At that instant, my father entered. I saw unhappiness deeply impressed on his countenance, but he endeavored to welcome me cheerfully, and after we exchanged a mournful greeting, would have introduced some topic other than that, had not Ernst exclaimed, "Good God, Papa! Victor says he knows who was up to it." "We do also, unfortunately," replied my father, "for I have rather been forever ignorant than discovered such ingratitude in one I valued so highly." "My dear father, you are mistaken. Justine is innocent." Well, if she is, God forbid she should be called guilty, for today's the case. And I hope, sincerely hope, she will be acquitted. This speech calmed me. I was firmly convinced in my own mind that Justine, and indeed every human being, was guiltless, especially as I had seen a non-human. I had no fear, however, that any circumstantial evidence should be brought forward strong enough to convict her. My tale, hopefully, because my tale was not one to be announced publicly. It would be so astounding that it would be seen as madness by the simple-minded people in my town. Did anyone indeed exist except I, the creator, who would believe it, unless his senses convinced him in the existing of the living monument of presumption and rash ignorance which I had let loose upon the world? We were soon joined by Elizabeth. Time had altered her since I last beheld her. It had endowed her with loveliness surpassing the beauty of her childish years. There came the same candor, the same vivacity, but it was allied to an expression more full of sensibility and intellect. She welcomed me with the greatest affection. Your arrival, my dear cousin, said she, fills me with hope. You will perhaps find some mean to justify my poor, guiltless Justine. Alas, who is safe if who is safe if this is true? I rely on her innocence as certainly as I do upon my own. This is doubly hard on us. We've not only lost this kid, he went to see his mom, but also this poor girl who I'm sincerely love. I shall never know joy more. But, I'm convinced she's innocent, so she won't get busted, I'm sure she will not. And then again, I shall be happy again, even, when I'm not happy. She is innocent, my Elizabeth, said I, and that shall be proved. Fear nothing, but let your spirits be cheered by the assurance of her acquittal. How kind and generous you are. Everyone else believes in her guilt, and that has made me wretched. For I knew that it was impossible, and to see everyone else decide has rendered me hopeless and despairing, she wept. Dearest niece, said my father, dry your tears. If she is, as you believe, innocent, rely on justice of our laws. In the activity with I shall prevent the slightest shadow of partiality. And so we rested that day. We all took a nap because it had been I woke everybody up at 5 a.m. and we rested for some time. And we slept. Maybe this is Scoots trying to tuck you in, and I'm trying to get through. If you're still listening to me, this tuck you in message is very, very specific. Because obviously, if you listen on a regular basis, we're trying to reach people just like you. I'm not sure if you're the person I'm trying to get through to right now, but it is a lot for a sleep podcast, right? Because I need somebody that's listening, paying attention, hearing me. And in this case, I'm looking for somebody, and I don't know if you're that person that listens all night long and I just caught you at the right time, or you listen 5 nights a week, you listen to 1 or 2 episodes a night. You're very, very specific, and it might be easy for you to brush off, but I really need you to just please listen to me, and I promise we'll have a great deal at the end if you hear me out. Because a lot of people tune me out, or I'm not even sure what is the main thing that I need to say. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm only trying to see if you're the person this message is for, really. Because I know I don't need to convince anybody to support the show. Because like 50% of the people, or a little bit more than 50% of the people that I'm trying to get through to this, say, no, I'm not going to support the podcast. And then there's the people that will support the podcast, but then there's the large majority of super listeners. And in this case, are you, so let's see, are you listening to me, or are you paying attention? Do you listen either all night long, 5, 6, 7 nights a week, or you listen to multiple episodes a night? Because you're definitely a super listener. It sounds like the podcast makes your life better, but you could decide that, right? Does the podcast make yourself better? But if this show is here for you, we really do need our goal was by the summer to get 1,500 super listeners just like you to support the show on Sleep With Me Plus. Not just so the show can get by, but so it can be here. We put out a lot of content. I don't know, so it can be here for you to listen to it all night long, because ads have never covered all night listening. Ads have never covered the cost of multiple episodes a night listening, because in the end, we make about a half a penny an ad. And if you're fine with that, I'm not trying to change your mind, right? Or if you say, I don't like it, it's not a big deal to me whether the podcast is there or not, or whether it gets by or not, whether it's a struggle or whether the show's flourishing. I'm not trying to get a hold of you if you're that person. I'm just wondering if you're one of those people that cares and knows the podcast is valuable to you, but there's something else that's been standing in your way, because I'm not sure what it is. And I know if it's like that for you, it's probably like that for other people. And that's how we're going to get there to our goal, because we do have a long way to go. We've got 500 people supporting the show, new supporters now, and we need 1,000 more. And I don't know if you're that one person, but don't deny the fact you can choose not to support the show. That's great. But I am talking to you. Like, you probably are the only person hearing me and listening to me right now. So I just need you to decide. If you decide, no, I'm not going to support the show, that's a valid choice. Otherwise, you could think about supporting the show. But don't be in the middle. The middle's where the podcast can't make it, right? It's, I don't know, I need to get through to those people that listen all night long. And if not, right, like I said, if you don't want to support the show, if you're not going to support the show and you decide that, that's okay. I'm only trying to get through the people I need to get through to. I'm not trying to change minds as so much as communicate and be heard by the people that are listening and can hear me. But the thing is, if you're not going to support Sleep With Me and you're still listening and hearing me, think about, like, what do you use as much as Sleep With Me or more? What makes your life better, even if it's during the day? I could ask you a favor. Support that. Even if it's a mega corporation, even if you pay for the service and it has ads, support it, right? Like, support whatever makes your life better. One thing. You could, if you're in a position to support multiple things, that's amazing too. But if you're not going to support Sleep With Me, think about what is that thing, the creator, the musician, the writer, who you are going to support. But if you're like, no, Sleep With Me is the thing that makes my life better. Like, Sleep With Me is the thing. And I am getting through to you, right? Sleep With Me's been there when nothing else has. You paid for other sleep stuff. It never worked for you. You listen to the show all night long and you want to pay for it because ads don't cover the cost of that, right? But we only need one out of, what do we got? We need 1,000 of about 19,000 people. So 1 out of 20. If you're that 1 out of 20 people, you could change the thing of the show. You get a 7-day trial at Sleep With Me Plus. But here's the thing. If you're listening to me right now, we got 2 deals going here. You could go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/all night and you'll get a 20% off the Boar Friend tier. Only the Boar Friend tier, and only if you use that link, sleepwithmepodcast.com/all night. Because the Boar Friend tier and the Boar Besties tier are built with all night listeners in mind. But I can only give you the discount if you use that link, and it'll automatically populate if you go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/all night. But here's the thing. The first 5 people that do that, I'm also going to send you a notebook because I'm moving and I'm going through all my old stuff. And I used to take paper handwritten notes of the TV recaps and the written episodes. I can't let you choose because a lot of stuff's already packed, but I will take a notebook. I'll put a couple stickers in it and I'll send it to you. If you sign up at sleepwithmepodcast.com/all night, and you'll get that 20% off deal. So it's 20% off Boar Friend tier. It's the best tier for all night listening. It's built with all night listeners or people that listen very frequently. So become a Boar Friend and you'll get that discount at sleepwithmepodcast.com/all night. Thanks.